If you thought the transition from the Gen 1 to the Gen 2 Mage Pro was going to be subtle, you may be in for a surprise. This is definitely not an example of a time when the switch from a Gen 1 to a Gen 2 paddle is a subtle change. Not only is the Mage Pro Gen 2 constructed of a Kevlar carbon fiber blend compared to the carbon fiber only Mage Pro Gen 1, but it is now a completely different shape and plays much differently too. It is, however, still very budget friendly, as the generous 30% off code that this channel was given brings the final price of the Mage Pro Gen 2 to $119, making it one of the best value pickleball paddles on the market, especially when coupled with Hudef's lifetime warranty and their true try it and love it or return it 30-day return policy. Let's get right to the good stuff here and compare the new Gen 2 Mage Pro to the original Gen 1, as well as compare it to some of the other paddles I've been testing like the Bread and Butter Fatboy, the LAZR-16S, and some others. The Mage Pro Gen 2 is hybrid shaped, and though it has a shorter handle length listed on their website than the Mage Pro Gen 1, when you lay them over top of each other, the handle length itself appears exactly the same. One obvious difference between the two generations, aside from the Kevlar carbon fiber hybrid material of the Gen 2, however, is the shape of the face itself, with the Gen 1 having more of a straight-edged face, and the Gen 2 adopting more of the tapered face like the Mark 1 or the 6.0 Ruby, which are more wide at the top than the bottom, and the new Gen 2 Mage Pro being obviously more wide than the Mage Pro Gen 1. The Gen 2 also now offers a 14mm option in addition to the 16mm option, and in terms of interesting stats when comparing swing weights and twist weights, the most recent Mage Pro Gen 1 that I've been sent had a swing weight of 114 and a twist weight of 5.7. The Mage Pro Gen 2 in the 14mm version had a swing weight of 108 and a twist weight of 6.26, and the 16mm version had a swing weight of 115 and a twist weight of 6.81. This means that even though the Mage Pro Gen 1 was 16mm, the 14mm Mage Pro Gen 2 had a lower swing weight, making it more maneuverable, and a higher twist weight, making it more stable than the Gen 1, and the 16mm version had a comparable swing weight to the Gen 1, but a giant jump in sweet spot to 6.81. With those numbers and the new shape of the Mage Pro Gen 2, both paddles felt much more maneuverable and stable than the Mage Pro Gen 1, in my subjective opinion. One request I've been getting in the suggestions portion of my giveaway forms is to share my initial impressions after hitting the paddles for the first time while still at courtside, so let's go to that and I'll share those with you now. Hey guys, these are my first impressions of the Mage Pro Gen 2. Sorry for the noise, it's a little bit loud in here, but we'll try this, and if it works, we'll do it again in the future. But first thing I noticed about playing with this paddle was definitely the pop. Even on my dinks, I was popping a few up, a few went high just to start. Didn't expect it to have so much pop, especially the 16mm. It was more poppy even than the Viva Pro Gen 2, no, the Viva Pro Gen 3, Hudef's other Kevlar carbon fiber hybrid. I ended up putting lead tape up here, like at the 10 and 2, to kind of bring the sweet spot up a little bit. I've been used to playing with longer paddles, I feel like, lately, so with that, I feel like this was hitting as hard as, especially in terms of pop, as any of the paddles that I've been playing with. So I did kind of like the 16mm better than the 14. The 14 was a little less stable, a little less forgiving on off-center shots, but it was more poppy. So as far as these two go, I'm really impressed. Very solid first day. Probably one of the most poppy Kevlar paddles I've played with. And I'll go ahead and do like a side-by-side line them up comparison and sort it out so I can know which one of these for sure is more poppy, but that's it. And after playing with these paddles some time more, I still feel about the same as I did initially, with the 16mm version being my favorite of the two here. Like I mentioned before, one thing I also did on day one of testing was a side-by-side pop comparison of some of the paddles I've been testing or just started testing, where I lined each of them up side by side on the fence, removed any weight I had added to each of them, and then softly hit them one after another, rearranging them as I hit a paddle alongside the one next to it until I had a good idea of where the pop of each of them lied relative to each other. This was actually an interesting experiment for me because I initially lined them up based on my guess of where they would feel in terms of pop levels, which I'll put on the screen here. And surprisingly, they ended up feeling a bit different than I had thought during the testing. The actual order of the pop I'll display here as well. It did seem to have 3 separate tiers here where I felt a noticeable step up in pop per level, with the J3, J2K, and Groovin LAZR-16S being in the bottom level and the lowest levels of pop, with the bread and butter Fatboy, Spartus Apollo, and J3K and the 16mm Mage Pro Gen2 having pretty decent pop in the second tier, and the 14mm Mage Pro Gen2, J3K Pro, and the Dunamis having the highest level of pop among these paddles I was testing. I think this was an interesting finding for me and really highlighted the importance of recognizing almost unavoidable recency and anchoring bias and hitting paddles on the same day with the same temperature, ball type, etc. when comparing paddles for a side-by-side direct comparison. I will also say that while hitting these paddles together, there was a noticeable increase in maneuverability with the Dunamis, both the Mage Pro Gen2 paddles, and the Groovin LAZR-16S when compared to the others I hit on the same day. I really don't have a lot of bad things to say about the Mage Pro Gen2, honestly, but if I were to pick out some potential weaknesses, I would say that it's lower in drive speed compared to its pop, so if you like big power on drives, this may be a deterrent for you. Overall, I think Hudef did a really good job at pretty much totally redesigning the Mage Pro. I like the look of the new Mage Pro better than I did the original one, and I think that improved pop of both the 16mm and 14mm versions make the new Gen 2s a little bit more special when compared to the Gen 1, and I really like when companies offer that 14mm option. That's my take on the new Hudef Mage Pro Gen 2. I hope this review was helpful, and if it was, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you here for the next one.